The most profound miracles often emerge from the depths of brokenness. Along a forgotten stretch of highway, a lone father stops to aid a desperate mother and her famished twin daughters. Little did he know this simple act of compassion would ignite a sequence of events destined to transform all their lives forever. This tale transcends the mere mechanics of repairing automobiles or healing shattered aspirations. It's about discovering family in the most unexpected places and the quiet, persistent love that constructs a sanctuary where once stood only emptiness. Join us as each chapter brings you nearer to a miracle crafted from hope, compassion, and fresh beginnings. For those who trust in kindness, love, and new opportunities, we welcome you to our community. Subscribe to become part of a journey where everyday acts lead to extraordinary transformations. Now let our story unfold. The Turner Auto Shop had once stood proudly along Route 21, a modest yet respected establishment in a town too small to merit naming on most maps. Now it resembled an abandoned relic, peeling white paint, a tilted sign reading, Turner Auto Shop Established, 1971, and a gravel yard overtaken by weeds. Inside lingered the scents of motor oil, sun-damaged leather, and the sweet, heavy dust that only years could deposit. Cole Turner wiped his hands on a worn cloth and leaned against his workbench, examining the framework of a 1967 Mustang he'd been reconstructing for months. It wasn't merely a vehicle. It embodied a silent vow he maintained, a method of keeping old aspirations alive when everything else around him had grown still. Behind him, in the shop's furthest corner, sat a boy, a slender figure hunched over a tattered notebook, pencil moving quietly across the page. Ben, 8 years old, Cole's son, in the center of a world that had otherwise disintegrated 2 years ago when death claimed too much too suddenly. Ben rarely spoke nowadays. Some mornings he wouldn't even acknowledge when Cole placed breakfast before him. The boy existed within his drawings, intricate sketches of automobiles, engines, and occasionally, if observed closely enough, a small cottage with smoke curling from its chimney. A home that existed nowhere except in pencil strokes and quiet yearning. Cole returned his attention to the Mustang, running his palm along its dusty hood. Townspeople claimed he was wasting his time. They insisted there was no purpose in restoring an old car when no customers remained to appreciate it. But they failed to understand this wasn't about business. It concerned proving to himself, to Ben, to the vacant spaces where laughter once dwelled, that some things could be rebuilt, even when everything suggested letting go would be easier. A warm breeze swept through the open garage doors, carrying the aroma of dry brush and distant rainfall. Cole wiped his forehead and gazed down the empty stretch of Route 21, nothing but swirling dust and the low buzz of insects. Summer in Nevada. He sighed and glanced at the clock hanging crookedly above the doorway. 2:45 p.m. Almost time to deliver the Mustang to a collector near Carson City. A rare, profitable job if he could get the vehicle running smoothly enough for the journey. He hated leaving Ben alone, even briefly. But Mrs. Hadley from the diner down the road had promised to check in. Still, Cole felt uneasy. Ben trusted few people anymore. Truth be told, neither did Cole. He removed his work gloves and grabbed the keys from the nail by the door. The Mustang roared to life immediately. A small, defiant miracle. Cole permitted himself a rare smile. Minor victories, he thought. You accepted them whenever possible. Before departing, he approached Ben, kneeling to meet the boy's distant gaze. "Hey, champ," he said gently. "I'll return before dark. Mrs. Hadley's just next door if you need anything." Ben nodded, a slight movement barely perceptible unless you were watching for it. Cole squeezed the boy's shoulder, wishing, praying for more, but knowing better than to press. As he carefully backed the car out of the garage, he caught one final glimpse of the place. Sunbeams cut through the dust in golden ribbons, illuminating the cluttered workbenches, the oil stains on the floor, and Ben, small and solemn, bent over his notebook. For just a moment it resembled a postcard from a forgotten America, where hard labor and heartache intertwined with quiet dignity. The drive stretched long and solitary. The road shimmered beneath the desert heat. Cole adjusted the rearview mirror and caught his own reflection. Lined face, weathered skin, gray flecking his temples, not unlike the garage itself. Weathered, worn, but still standing. Halfway down Route 21, he spotted movement ahead. A battered station wagon pulled off to the side, hood raised, steam curling into the air like a distress signal. Beside it, a woman waved frantically, her other arm clutching two little girls to her sides. Cole's heart sank. He eased the Mustang onto the shoulder and climbed out, the door protesting with a creak. The woman appeared young, early 30s perhaps, her jeans dusty, a threadbare t-shirt clinging to her frame. The girls seemed even smaller than Ben had been when life first knocked him sideways. Twins, wide-eyed, hungry-looking. The woman's voice cracked when she spoke. "Please, we've been stranded here for hours. We've no water left, and the girls haven't eaten since yesterday." Cole needed no further explanation. Something in her expression, defiant yet desperate, penetrated every guarded instinct he had developed since the world taught him caution. He nodded once. "Pop the hood," he said gruffly. He glanced at the girls who clung to her legs like saplings in a storm. "Let's get them some shade." She hesitated briefly, then reached into the car, retrieving her worn backpack. The girls held tightly to her hands as they stepped carefully into the shadow cast by the Mustang. Cole examined the station wagon's engine. Overheated. He could repair it given an afternoon and parts he didn't carry in his pocket. But the vehicle wasn't what needed immediate attention. "You folks from around here?" he asked. The woman shook her head. Her voice, when it came, was steady but fragile. "Just trying to reach somewhere better." A moment of silence passed between them, heavy and vibrating with unspoken words. Cole wiped his hands on his jeans, glanced back toward town. The garage, Ben waiting, the empty house with its two quiet rooms. "All right," he said finally. "Let's get you all somewhere safe first. Then we'll figure out the rest." The woman blinked rapidly, fighting tears she clearly wished to conceal. "Thank you," she whispered. Cole grunted, guiding her and the girls toward the Mustang. As they climbed in, he noticed the smallest smile from one of the twins, the kind of smile incapable of falseness. And for the first time in ages, Cole felt it. A shift. Subtle, small, but genuine. Perhaps, just perhaps, some things weren't beyond repair after all. The journey back to Turner Auto Shop passed quietly, filled only with the purr of the Mustang's engine and the soft, uneven breathing of the two little girls in the back seat. They clutched hands tightly as if afraid the world might attempt to separate them should they loosen their grip even momentarily. Sarah, the woman's name he had learned as she cautiously slid into the passenger seat, kept her gaze fixed on the horizon. Her hands trembled in her lap, fingers twisting the frayed strap of her backpack. Cole drove with one eye on the road and the other occasionally glancing toward her, noting signs of exhaustion, the silent calculation etched into the hard set of her jaw. She was accustomed to fighting alone. That much was evident. It wasn't his place to ask questions. Not yet. Still, he found himself wondering, where had she come from? What circumstances had turned this woman and her two tiny girls into refugees on the shoulder of a forgotten highway? The Mustang rumbled over the dusty road, past sun-bleached fields and crumbling fence posts. Out here, there weren't many second chances. You either managed with what you possessed, or you didn't survive at all. When they pulled into the gravel lot of the garage, Ben remained exactly where Cole had left him, sitting cross-legged near the workbench, his notebook balanced carefully on his knees. He didn't look up immediately, but Cole noticed the subtle tensing of his shoulders, the way his pencil paused mid-stroke. Ben observed everything. He just didn't always know what to do with his observations. Cole parked the Mustang and turned off the ignition. Dust settled around them like fine mist. "We'll help you," he said gruffly to Sarah. "You and the girls. It's not much, but it's safe." Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to shed. She helped the twins from the car, one girl clutching a battered teddy bear, the other dragging a tattered blanket that had seen better decades. Ben watched from his perch, silent and wary. Cole crouched to the twins' level. "Are you hungry?" he asked gently. They nodded in perfect unison. He gestured toward the garage's side door. There's a small kitchen through there. Got some beans and bread. Maybe a slice of pie if Mrs. Hadley left anything. Sarah hesitated, glancing back at Cole as if waiting for conditions. When none came, she guided the girls through the door with a soft, murmured, "Thank you," that seemed to cost more pride than she could afford. Cole followed after a moment, walking past Ben without needing to speak. Ben closed his notebook and trailed behind, his bare feet making no sound on the concrete floor. The kitchen was as plain as kitchens came, a worn Formica table, 4 mismatched chairs, a stove older than Cole himself, and a humming refrigerator that sounded like it contemplated retirement. Still, there was food, and presently that represented luxury. Cole opened a can of baked beans and emptied them into a pot without ceremony. He found half a loaf of bread on the counter and set it out, slicing it thick, the way his mother used to do on Sunday afternoons. He moved with quiet efficiency, conscious of the small eyes watching him from the table. Ben stood stiffly in the doorway, clutching his notebook like a shield. He hadn't spoken yet, but he hadn't retreated either, a small miracle itself. When the food was ready, Cole ladled beans into bowls, placed a slab of bread on each plate, and set them before the girls. He caught a glimpse of their faces, how they tried to mask their hunger out of politeness, how their hands trembled slightly as they gripped the spoons. Sarah sat last, her posture rigid, her fingers white-knuckled around the bowl. "You're safe here," Cole said quietly, more to her than to the girls. For a moment she didn't respond. Then she lowered her head, shoulders sagging as if some unbearable weight had finally slipped from her back. The girls ate with fierce, almost mechanical determination, not wasting a drop. Ben drifted closer, hovering near the table, his eyes darting between the twins and his father. Cole pulled out a chair and gave him a small nod. Ben hesitated, then slowly, awkwardly, he sat down. It wasn't much. It wasn't laughter or conversation, or even trust, but it was something. And in a place like Turner Auto Shop, where the walls echoed too often with silence, something was everything. After the girls finished eating, Sarah helped them clean their hands with damp cloths Cole found in a drawer. The sun began to sink, casting long, golden shafts of light through the dusty windows. "I'll examine your car tomorrow," Cole said, leaning against the counter. "Tonight, you and the girls can stay here. Got a couple of spare cots in the back office. Not fancy, but better than the roadside." Sarah opened her mouth, perhaps to protest, perhaps to insist they didn't want charity. But then her gaze settled on the twins, curled together on one chair, their faces slack with the bone-deep exhaustion only children could wear so openly. She closed her mouth and nodded. "Thank you," she said simply. Cole inclined his head. "No need for speeches out here. Kindness didn't come with price tags or conditions. It came because one day you might be the one stranded on the roadside." He turned to Ben, who was now sketching something new. A Mustang, maybe, or a dream only he could see. "Come on, kiddo," Cole said. "Let's prepare their beds." Ben looked at him, really looked at him for the first time all day. And then without a word he stood, closing his notebook with a soft thump. As they set up the cots together, working side by side in the fading light, Cole experienced something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. It wasn't loud. It didn't shout or blaze like fireworks. It was small, quiet, but it was real. And sometimes out here, where the world forgot to look, that was more than enough. Morning arrived slowly to Turner Auto Shop. Sunlight slipped through the cracked windows, painting long rectangles of gold across the concrete floor. The air smelled of warm metal, old dust, and something sweeter. Something that hadn't lingered here for a long time. Life. Cole stirred from the battered recliner he had dragged into the garage years ago. His back ached, his shoulder complained, but for once he didn't mind. He rubbed his eyes and listened. There it was again, the small, precious sounds he hadn't heard in too long. Children not crying, not shouting, just being. The soft giggles of the twin girls floated in from the office, punctuated by the occasional creak of springs as they bounced on the old cots. Sarah's voice followed, low and warm, corralling them with a kind of tired affection that made Cole's chest tighten. He swung his legs off the recliner and stood, the floor cool against his bare feet. Across the room, Ben was already awake, perched at the kitchen table with his sketchbook. The boy was drawing with quiet intensity, his small fingers smudged with graphite. Cole watched him for a moment, marveling again at how Ben had changed since yesterday. How the arrival of two giggling, stubborn little girls had nudged something loose inside his boy's heart. It remained fragile still, like a fledgling testing its wings, but it was there, and that was enough. Cole moved to the stove, setting a battered coffee pot to percolate. The aroma of brewing coffee soon filled the room, thick and comforting. He rummaged through the cupboard, found a few more cans of beans, and decided it would suffice for breakfast. Perhaps Mrs. Hadley could spare some eggs later if he made the trip. He heated the beans slowly, stirring them with an old wooden spoon that had belonged to his mother. The girls shuffled into the kitchen first, their hair wild with sleep, dragging their blanket between them like a shared shield. Sarah followed, her face pale but composed. Cole served them bowls of beans and slices of thick bread cut from the loaf he had saved. Ben watched the girls eat with quiet fascination, as if still trying to determine whether they were real or just another of his sketches come to life. Sarah sat across from Cole, her fingers curled around a chipped mug of black coffee. For a while, neither spoke. The silence wasn't heavy, though. It felt companionable, like two people sharing a front porch swing, content just to exist in the same space. Finally, Sarah cleared her throat. "I can repay you," she said, voice low but steady. "I mean, not immediately, but I can work, clean, cook, whatever you need." Cole shook his head slowly. "You owe me nothing," he said simply. "Sometimes people just need breathing room." Sarah blinked at him. For a moment, Cole thought she might cry, but she swallowed it down, lifting her chin in a stubborn, almost defiant gesture. "I'm not accustomed to handouts," she said. "Neither am I," Cole replied. "That's why this isn't one." He nodded toward the garage bay where the Mustang skeleton waited under a tarp. "Could always use another pair of hands." Sarah followed his gaze and released a soft, surprised laugh. "I know nothing about cars," she admitted. Cole smiled, the expression rare and unpracticed. "You'll learn." The girls finished eating, and after a few whispered consultations, decided the most important task was exploring every inch of Turner Auto Shop. Ben shadowed them silently at first, his notebook clutched to his chest like armor. But soon enough, curiosity overcame him. Cole watched as Ben showed the girls the old tool cabinets, the hoist that hadn't functioned properly in years, even the secret stash of candy bars he kept in the bottom drawer of his desk. Lily and June, untroubled by the dust and clutter, treated each discovery as a treasure beyond price. When Ben finally laughed, a soft, startled sound like the first chime of a distant bell, Sarah turned sharply toward Cole, her hand flying to her mouth. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. They both understood the significance of that moment. It wasn't merely a laugh, it was a crack in the armor, a sign that maybe, just maybe, the boy who had been locked away inside himself was finding his way back. As morning stretched into afternoon, Cole and Sarah worked together in the garage bay. Cole demonstrated how to sand rust from fenders, how to check for cracks in the engine block, how to handle the old tools with the respect they demanded. Sarah learned quickly, her hands nimble, her brow furrowed in concentration. There was something familiar about her, something that spoke of hardships endured and dreams buried deep, but not extinguished. When the sun reached its zenith, Cole called a break. He retrieved a dusty ice chest from under the counter and found a couple of root beers still cool enough to drink. They sat side by side on the tailgate of an old pickup truck parked outside, sipping in silence. Ben, Lily, and June played in the dirt nearby, building elaborate fortresses from scrap wood and hubcaps. Sarah gazed at the vast, empty horizon. "Thank you," she said again. So quietly, Cole almost missed it. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the children, their laughter rising into the bright, unforgiving sky. "You needn't keep thanking me," he said finally. Helping people. That's what we're supposed to do. Somewhere along the way, we all forgot that. Sarah turned her head, studying him with an intensity that made him shift slightly under her gaze. You're a rare breed, Cole Turner, she said softly. He shrugged. Just stubborn, mostly. But deep down, he knew stubbornness had nothing to do with it. It was hope. It was believing that even here in the dust and ruin, good things could still grow, perhaps even miracles. Evening at Turner Auto Shop carried a piece you couldn't purchase anywhere. The sun melted behind the distant hills, leaving the sky streaked with orange, pink, and fading blue. The air cooled just enough to lift the dust from the ground and let it dance like gold threads in the waning light. Cole leaned against the frame of the garage bay, arms crossed loosely over his chest, watching the kids with quiet, almost sacred satisfaction. Ben, Lily, and June crouched near an old tire pile, huddled over a game only they seemed to comprehend. Their heads bent close together, their laughter rising and falling like birdsong in the dusk. For the first time in years, the garage wasn't silent. And that, Cole thought, was the true miracle. Sarah had disappeared into the storage room earlier, searching for blankets and pillows. Cole heard a clatter, followed by a soft curse under her breath. He pushed away from the door frame and made his way inside, curious. The storage room was a cluttered time capsule, crates of forgotten parts, shelves sagging under the weight of dusty manuals. And tucked away in the furthest corner, a battered leather trunk Cole hadn't opened in over a decade. He found Sarah kneeling by the trunk, her hands covered in dust, a peculiar smile tugging at her lips. "Hope you don't mind," she said, brushing a stray hair from her forehead. "I found some extra blankets in this." She held up a boxy old Polaroid camera, the kind Cole remembered his father using, back when capturing a photograph still felt like seizing a piece of magic. Cole chuckled low in his throat. "Thought that thing died years ago." Sarah inspected it, tilting it back and forth. "Looks like it just needs attention. Mind if I try it?" He shrugged, feeling the strange warmth of nostalgia settle into his bones. "Be my guest." Outside, the sky deepened into twilight, the first stars beginning to appear in the vast expanse above. The kids still played, their energy seemingly endless, their imaginations boundless. Sarah adjusted the camera, tapped its side once for good measure, then peered through the viewfinder. "All right, everyone, gather up," she called. Lily and June immediately scampered toward her, Ben following more slowly, hesitant. Sarah knelt down to their level, arranging them like little figurines. Ben in the middle, Lily on one side, June on the other. The girls wrapped their arms around Ben without hesitation, and to Cole's amazement, Ben didn't pull away. He appeared stiff, uncertain, but something else was present too. Something unfurling in his guarded heart. "Say cheese," Sarah encouraged. Three small voices blended into one ragged chorus, and Sarah pressed the button. The Polaroid clicked, whirred, and ejected a white square. Sarah fanned it carefully, watching as the image began to materialize. When the colors finally bloomed on the glossy surface, even Cole had to catch his breath. There they were, three children tangled in an imperfect, beautiful knot of arms and smiles. The dusty Mustang in the background, the setting sun crowning them like angels in a forgotten cathedral. Sarah held the photo out to Cole with a gentle smile. "You should keep this," she said. Cole accepted it, cradling the picture like something fragile and irreplaceable. He didn't speak. Couldn't really. The lump in his throat was too substantial. Instead, he walked back into the garage, found a battered corkboard above the workbench, and pinned the photo there, right in the center where it couldn't be missed. A new beginning captured in a single heartbeat. Later that night, after the girls had curled into each other on their cot, and Ben had fallen asleep clutching his sketchbook, Cole and Sarah sat side by side outside the garage, their chairs tilted back, their boots resting on an overturned crate. The stars overhead stretched out like spilled sugar, endless and shimmering. Cole tipped his head back, letting the coolness of the night wash over him. "It's been a long time since this place felt alive," he murmured. Sarah sipped from an old enamel mug filled with weak coffee and nodded. You built something good here, she said. Cole huffed a dry laugh. Built it for a life that doesn't exist anymore. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, maybe it's not about building a life. Maybe it's about building moments, good ones, enough of them strung together. Maybe that's all life really is. Cole turned to look at her, the lines around his eyes softening. You always talk like that? He asked, a trace of a smile tugging at his mouth. She smiled back, the edges of her weariness softening for the first time. Only when I'm sleep-deprived. They sat in comfortable silence afterward, listening to the occasional creak of the garage cooling in the night air, the soft breathing of children through the open windows. Before retiring, Sarah wandered back into the garage, returning a few minutes later with the Polaroid in hand. She had taken another photo. It was a shot of the garage itself, Turner Auto Shop, established 1971. With light from the window spilling onto the dusty lot, the Mustang's gleaming hood just barely visible through the open bay door. Sarah pinned it next to the first photo, the children's photo, and beneath it in shaky but determined handwriting, she wrote, "Home isn't a place, it's the people who believe in you." Cole stood back and stared at the two photographs for a long time after Sarah had gone inside. The garage remained battered. The Mustang was still far from finished. Ben still carried scars no one could see. But perhaps, just perhaps, they were beginning something that mattered more than any of that. Perhaps they were building something new, something you couldn't lose, not ever again. The morning light poured into Turner Auto Shop like a slow-moving river, soft and golden, brushing everything it touched with a kind of reverence. The dust motes floated lazily through the air, caught in sunbeams that made the old place appear almost sacred. Ben sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, sketchbook balanced on his knees, a stub of pencil working steadily across the page. Occasionally he would glance up, watching the twins as they plotted some grand adventure among the abandoned tires and spare parts. Cole leaned against the doorframe, a chipped coffee mug cradled in his hands, his heart strangely full. He could feel it, that slow thaw, that cautious, creeping hope that maybe, just maybe, they were all finding their way back to the world. Sarah appeared beside him, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "They're good for him," she said quietly. Cole nodded. "They're good for all of us." After breakfast, more beans, more bread, with the promise of better fare once they visited town, Lily and June discovered the old bicycle. It was a relic, even by Turner Auto Shop standards. Rusted frame, sagging tires, paint peeling away in jagged scars. Cole had intended to discard it years ago, but had never found the heart to do so. The twins dragged it into the middle of the yard like pirates uncovering buried treasure. Ben watched from the steps, his pencil forgotten on the ground. Lily and June knelt around the bicycle, conferring in whispers, while Sarah searched through a box of odds and ends and emerged with a length of bright red ribbon, frayed at the edges, but still vibrant. She handed it to the girls with a wink. "Every good bike needs a little magic," she said. The twins giggled and set to work, tying the ribbon around the handlebars, the frame, even the battered seat until the whole thing resembled some kind of whimsical chariot. When they finished, they stepped back, beaming. Ben edged closer, curiosity drawing him forward, despite himself. Lily offered the bike like a gift. Ben shook his head, stepping back, fear flickering across his face. But June, with the infinite patience only a child could possess, walked up and gently placed the ribbon-tied handlebars in Ben's hands. "You can do it," she said simply, as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. Cole held his breath from the doorway. He had tried before. God knew he had tried to get Ben back on a bike, back into the sunlight, back into life. Each attempt had ended with tears, silence, walls built higher and thicker. But this was different. This was friendship, pure and uncalculated. Ben gripped the handlebars tighter, his knuckles whitened. He placed one foot on the pedal, wobbled dangerously and nearly toppled. Lily darted forward, steadying him. June clapped her hands and shouted encouragement. Sarah moved to stand beside Cole, her hand brushing his lightly, grounding him. Ben tried again, and this time he moved a few feet. Awkward, jerky, uncertain, but he moved. The twins ran beside him, laughing and cheering, and Ben's face, taut with concentration, broke into a grin so wide, so fiercely bright, that Cole had to blink hard against the sudden sting in his eyes. Ben laughed, a real laugh, rich and ringing, and utterly free, and Cole felt something inside him break wide open. Not grief, not fear, but joy, pure and sharp and unexpected. He heard Sarah's breath catch beside him and knew she was feeling it too. That rare, precious miracle of watching a wounded heart choose to live again. When Ben finally skidded to a halt, tumbling sideways into a heap, the girls pounced on him, squealing with triumph. Ben sat up, brushing dirt from his jeans, and looked at Cole. For the first time in 2 long, aching years, he smiled directly at his father. Cole swallowed hard. "Good job, champ," he said, his voice rough. Ben ducked his head, embarrassed but glowing. The twins helped him up, chattering excitedly about races and obstacle courses they planned to build. Sarah bent down and retrieved the red ribbon, now dirty and trailing in the dust. She wound it loosely around her wrist, a quiet reminder of what had just occurred. "Never underestimate the magic of a little red ribbon," she murmured, smiling. Cole chuckled, the sound unfamiliar in his own throat. "I think it had much more to do with the company he kept." Sarah looked at him, then really looked, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to just the two of them. Two damaged souls standing in the middle of a forgotten place, watching hope take root in the most unlikely soil. That night after supper, when the children were dozing in a tangle of limbs on the cots, Sarah sat with Cole on the old wooden steps outside the garage. The stars above them stretched endlessly, sharp as diamonds against the velvet darkness. Sarah played with the ribbon still tied around her wrist, her fingers tracing lazy patterns. "You know," she said softly, "I spent a long time believing that once something broke, it stayed that way." Cole leaned back, the creak of the step familiar beneath his weight. "Yeah," he said, "I know that feeling." Sarah twisted the ribbon once, twice. "But maybe," she said almost to herself, "maybe it's not about restoring things to their original state. Maybe it's about finding a new way to fit the pieces together." Cole remained quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That's what a good mechanic does. You don't always have the perfect parts. Sometimes you must improvise, weld things stronger at the broken places." Sarah laughed low and warm. "I like that," she said, "welding the broken places." They sat together, the silence between them full of possibilities. Inside, the children stirred in their sleep, safe and whole, and utterly unaware of the miracle they had initiated. And out under the boundless Nevada sky, Cole Turner realized he wasn't just repairing old Mustangs anymore. He was fixing something far more valuable. He was fixing home. The next morning dawned with the kind of golden brilliance that made even the battered Turner Auto Shop look almost handsome. The garage door stood wide open, admitting the warm breath of summer, and somewhere overhead a solitary hawk circled lazily in the endless blue sky. Cole leaned over the Mustang's chassis, hands deep in grease and determination. The 1967 Fastback had remained idle too long. Its body had rusted through in patches. Its heart, the engine, silent and reluctant. But something had shifted inside Cole since the previous night, since Ben's laughter and the red ribbon fluttering like a battle flag against the sky. Perhaps the car didn't need to be perfect. Perhaps nothing did. Perhaps it just needed to run again, like them. Inside the garage, Sarah sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, a large piece of butcher paper spread before her. Ben knelt beside her, clutching a freshly sharpened pencil, his tongue poking out the corner of his mouth in concentration. Lily and June hovered nearby, offering spirited advice about flames along the sides and cool secret compartments for snacks. Sarah smiled, patient and endlessly encouraging. They were designing their Mustang, not just restoring it, reimagining it. "Tell me what you'd want it to look like," Sarah said, tapping the paper with the pencil. "This is your car, too." Ben hesitated, the pencil poised midair. Then he began to draw. Slow initially, tentative, but then with growing confidence. Sweeping lines, bold curves, fierce angles. Cole watched from a distance, pretending to be absorbed in the engine. But every few seconds, his gaze shifted toward them. Ben, who had once barely spoken above a whisper, now animatedly explained the differences between fastbacks and coupes, about the importance of weight distribution, about how red wasn't just a color, it was a feeling. Sarah listened as if he were revealing the secrets of the universe. And in a way, he was. Hours passed unnoticed. Sarah and Ben filled the paper with dream after dream. A Mustang with deep cherry red paint, black racing stripes, and a dashboard lined with small personalized engravings. Little stars, initials, and even a tiny sketch of a dinosaur. "For good luck," June insisted. Lily campaigned vigorously for rainbow headlights. Ben solemnly promised to consider it. Cole chuckled under his breath. Perhaps it wasn't the car restoration purists at the county fair would expect, but it was a restoration of something far more important: a family, a future. Later, as the sun began its slow arc toward the western hills, Cole called everyone together. He unrolled an old blueprint he had kept tucked away, a schematic of the 1967 Mustang's original factory design. Side by side, they compared the factory lines to the wild, imaginative design Ben and the girls had created. It was messy. It was imperfect. It was glorious. Cole tapped the drawings with a calloused finger. "All right," he said gruffly. "If we're doing this, we do it properly, piece by piece." Ben's eyes brightened, and Lily clapped her hands. Even June, who had grown momentarily distracted chasing a moth, ran over, her hair flying like a wild halo around her face. Sarah looked up at Cole, her smile quiet but fierce. In that moment, Cole realized something vital. It wasn't about restoring what was lost. It was about building something new from broken parts, from stubborn hope, from pencil sketches on old butcher paper. It was about forging a miracle with their own hands. The next few days established a rhythm, a dance of sorts. Mornings found Cole and Sarah working on the Mustang, teaching the kids everything from sanding down rust to measuring the angles of the frame. Ben proved naturally skilled with detailed work. The girls excelled at painting, taping, and somehow convincing Cole to allow tiny decorative stars on the underside of the dashboard.